What's up, everybody? Hello and welcome to Not Your Average Meta, an MTG Commander channel dedicated to bringing you decks and commanders you wouldn't normally find in your average meta. On today's episode of Not Your Average Meta, the crew decided to switch things up and play Pauper Commander. For those who don't know, Pauper Commander is a variant of normal commander, but you can use any uncommon creature to be your commander. You also have a starting life total of 30 life instead of 40, and it only takes 16 commander damage to knock you out of the game instead of 21. First, we have the man, the myth, the legend, Robert, returning playing Tatyova, Benthic Druid. He's looking to use his commander as a value engine to find his combo pieces to do degenerate stuff. Next, we have Alex, back after taking a short hiatus to explore some dungeons and fight some dragons, playing Adeliz, the Cinder Wind. This is a wizard tribal deck that looks to sling spells in order to pump up its creatures for lethal attacks. Next, we have the Boros Bro himself, Fog Raw, playing the only non-legendary creature at the table, Blaze Commando. Fog's looking to cast cheap direct damage spells in order to spam the board with enough soldier tokens swinging for mass amounts of damage. Last but not least, we have Robert's arch nemesis in this series of channel games, and that's Justin playing Slimefoot the Stowaway. Justin is looking to create saplings and take advantage of Slimefoot's life-draining ability to kill the table. Now let's step into the Thunderdome and see which deck will come out on top. Robert starts off the game, and he plays a Quandrix Campus and passes the turn to Alex. Alex draws for turn. He plays a Mystic Sanctuary, passing to Fog. Fog draws for turn. Plays an Evolving Wilds and then passes. Justin starts his turn by drawing. Plays a Shimmer Drift Veil, and then passes to Robert. At the beginning of Robert's upkeep, he draws, Fog cracks his Evolving Wilds to go get a Plains. Robert plays a Snow-Covered Island and passes to Alex. Alex draws for turn. Then taps his Mystic Sanctuary to cast a Ponder, looking at the top 3 cards of his library, putting them back in any order and drawing for turn. He then plays an Island, taps it, and casts a Preordained, scrying 2, and then drawing a card. He then passes his turn to Fog, who untaps, plays a Mountain, taps 1, and casts a Wayfarer's Bauble before passing his turn. Justin untaps, draws, plays an Opal Palace, and then passes his turn to Robert. Robert starts off his turn by drawing, playing a Snow-Covered Forest, and then tapping out to cast a Whisper Silk Cloak before passing to Alex. Alex draws, plays a Mountain, casts his commander Adeliz, the Cinder Wind, and swings to Robert for 2 commander damage before it passes to Fog. Fog untaps, plays a tapped Lorehold Campus, and then taps 2 to crack his Bauble and go get another Plains, passing to Justin. Justin starts off his turn by drawing, playing a Forest, and then tapping 3 to play Glimmering Frost, and he passes his turn. Robert starts off his turn by drawing, and then tapping 1 to cast a Brainstorm. He looks at the top 3 cards of his library, and then puts them back in any order. After putting the cards back, he plays an Evolving Wilds, cracking it to go get another Snow-Covered Island, and passes his turn. Alex untaps for turn, draws, plays a Terramorphic Expanse, and then taps 2 to cast a Goblin Electromancer. He then swings his commander Adelaide at me for 2 commander damage, and I take the hit, and he passes his turn. I draw for turn, play a Great Furnace, and then I tap out to cast my commander Blaze Commando and pass to Justin. Justin untaps for turn, draws, and then taps out to cast his commander Slimefoot, passes. Robert starts off his turn by drawing, playing a Command Tower, and then tapping 5 to cast Mold Drifter, which is encountered by Alex after he taps enough to cast the most commonly used counterspell on the channel, Essence Scatter, and then Robert passes Alex. He draws, and taps enough lands and delves away enough cards, along with the discount from Goblin Electromancer, to cast a Treasure Cruise. So he draws 3 cards, plays an island as a land for turn, and then goes to combat, swinging everybody at Robert. Before damage, he casts a Fist of Flame, drawing another card, which is enough to pump his crew at +5/+5, dealing 13 damage along with 9 more commander damage. He then passes his turn. Fog draws for turn, taps 2, tries to Lightning Strike Adelaide, but it is countered by a Mana Leak. In response, he taps 2 more, targets Adeliz with Chandra's Pyro Helix, dealing 2 damage to her, giving him 2 soldier tokens. He then taps 1 more, casts a Burst Lightning targeting Adeliz, giving him 2 more soldier tokens. He then swings 9 damage at Alex, which is 5 commander damage. He then passes his turn to Justin. Justin on taps for turn, draws, plays another forest. Then taps 4 lands in order to cast Thalid Omnivore, and he passes his turn to Robert. Robert on taps for turn, draws. Then taps out to cast his commander Tatyova before dropping in a snow-covered island, gaining life and drawing a card. Value. He then passes his turn to Alex. Alex on taps for turn, plays another mountain, then taps 2, and he casts Sage's Rare Savant, scrying 2. He then taps out the rest of his lands, and he casts a discounted Academy Journey Mage, bouncing the Blaze Commando back to my hand. He then passes. I untap for turn, draw, then I tap 2, and I cast Arcane Signet. I then tap 3 more, and I cast a Commander Sphere, and then I pass the turn to Justin. Justin on taps for turn, draws, plays another forest, then taps 4 and casts a Conifer Strider, and then passes his turn. Robert starts his turn by untapping his lands, drawing for turn, playing a snow-covered island, gaining a life, drawing a card. He then taps a snow-covered forest in order to enchant his island with a Wild Growth. He then taps for a blue in order to cast a High Tide, creating 4 floating blue mana. He then uses 3 of it to transmute Dizzy Spell and get a Life Spark Spellbomb. He then uses the last floating mana to cast Life Spark Spellbomb before going to equip Whispersoul Cloak to Tatyova. In response to the equip, I float a red mana off my Commander Sphere before sacking it to draw a card. I then use my 1 red floating to cast Spell Mastery Fiery Impulse, taking Tatyova out. Robert then uses his last 4 mana, and he casts Eureka Moment, drawing 2 cards but not being able to drop in another land. He then passes Alex. Alex on taps, draws, and taps enough to cast his commander Adeliz, the Cinder Wind. He then swings out at Robert after Robert declared he could have gone off last turn and created infinite mana. And in response to attacks, Alex casts Brainstorm, pumping his team up +1/+1 and swinging for 13 damage along with 3 more commander damage. He then passes. I draw for turn, play a mountain, tap my Arcane Signet to cast Faithless Looting, drawing 2, discarding 2. And then I tap 5 to recast my commander, Blaze Commando, before swinging my 4 soldiers at Robert, taking him out of the game. I then pass to Justin. Justin untaps for turn, draws, plays a swamp, he then taps 3 mana, and he casts Marauding Blight Priest before passing his turn to Alex. At the beginning of Alex's turn, he untaps all of his permanents, draws for turn, then he taps 2 to cast Teach by Example, allowing him to copy his next instant or sorcery. He then taps 4 to cast Amass the Components, getting 2 copies of it. He uses his first copy to draw 3 and bottom 1, and then uses the second one to draw 3 more, bottoming another one. He then plays Thriving Bluff as his land for turn, picking blue, and he swings out at me, which is enough damage to take me down to 11 health and 6 commander damage before he passes his turn. I untap for turn, draw, tap 2, and cast Environmental Sciences, searching my library for a basic land to put to my hand and gaining 2 life. I then tap 2 more, and hit Alex in the face with a Kindle for 2 damage, giving me 2 more soldier tokens, taking my total to 6. I then tap 2 more and attempt to cast Shredded Sails on his commander Adeliz, dealing 4 damage to her, before it's countered by an Arcane Denial. I then go to combat and I swing 5 more commander damage at Alex, taking him down to 14 health and giving him 10 commander damage before passing. At the end of my turn, Justin taps 4 and creates a Sapling token. He then goes to his upkeep, untapping all of his lands, and then draws for turn. He then taps 3, and he casts a new card, Blood Researcher, before passing his turn to Alex. At the beginning of Alex's turn, he untaps, draws for turn, plays another island, then he taps 2 and casts Tormenting Voice, discarding a card and drawing 2 cards. He then taps 3 to cast a Morph face down. And then he taps 2 to cast a Sanguinary Mage. He then attacks me for 3 with his commander, and in response, I Spark Spray him to the face, creating 2 more soldier tokens. And then I take the hit, going down to 10 life, and going to 9 commander damage. I untap for turn, and draw. I then tap enough to flash back my Faithless Looting. Drawing 2 cards and discarding 2 cards. I then tap 2, and I Parch him to the face for 2, creating 2 more soldier tokens. And then I delve away 5 cards and tap a red to cast Magnetic Sinkhole. Which he then morphs his creature over, revealing a Void Mage Apprentice countering the spell. I then swing out at him with my 5/3 commander and my 10 soldiers, forcing him to have to block if he wants to survive. And in the end, he decides to block my commander and 3 of my tokens, taking 7 damage, going down to 4. I then pass my turn. At the end of my turn, Justin creates another Sapling token, and then untaps at the beginning of his upkeep. He draws, and at this point, Alex and I both know we're pretty much screwed, and he's just gonna aristocrat both of us out with the sacrifice effects. But we decide to play it out and see what happens anyways. Justin taps 3, and he casts a Deathbloom Thallid. Then he passes his turn to Alex. At the beginning of his turn, Alex untaps all of his lands. He's hoping he can draw into something to stop us both from dying, so he draws for turn. And plays a tapped Izzet Guildgate. He then taps 1, casts a Fairy Seer, scrying 2, putting 2 on top of his library. Then he taps another 2, casts an Anticipate. At this point, we both know we're going to die, so he's just trying to find an answer and pump up his wizard as much as he possibly can. He then taps 2 more, casts Cathartic Reunion, discarding 2, drawing 3, and then decides to go to combat. But before combat, Justin sacks Sapling, draining us for 2, gaining 2. And then sacks another Sapling, draining us for another 2, gaining 2. Which knocks Alex out of the game. So at the beginning of my turn, I untap all my stuff, draw for turn, pray that I get an answer, which doesn't happen, and after looking at his board, I decide I can't do anything about it, so I concede the game to Justin and his sappy boys. Today's big winner was Justin picking up a second win on the channel. He was able to make a very impressive deck using Slimefoot the Stowaway along with other creatures' abilities to take advantage of his Aristocrat sacrifice effects. Today's MVP was Justin playing his Slimefoot deck. It is very apparent from the beginning of the game that Alex and I are both putting all our focus on Robert and stopping him from being able to combo off while we simultaneously attacked each other. Justin played it cool and collected the whole game and just sat back building up his board until he saw the perfect time to strike. Well played, Justin. Thanks for watching and be on the lookout for more games and decks you wouldn't normally see in your average meta.